The Valor had left him to rot. Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of Station Helix 7, watching the last transport ship vanish into the void. The station's emergency lights flickered overhead, casting crimson shadows across the corroded metal walls. Life support was failing. The fusion core had been dead for 3 days. By every calculation the Valor had made, he should be unconscious from oxygen deprivation within hours. Dead by morning. They had underestimated what desperation could do to a human mind. Marcus had been the only human engineer on the station, brought in as a consultant when the Valor conglomerate had purchased the ancient mining outpost. They had needed someone expendable to assess whether the station was worth salvaging. When the core began its catastrophic failure, the Valor had evacuated without a second thought, sealing the airlock behind them. After all, why waste resources on a single human when the station itself was already condemned? But Marcus had grown up in the Belt, where every breath was borrowed and every system held together with improvisation and prayer. His father had been a salvage specialist who could make a dead ship sing. His mother had kept a mining colony alive for 6 months after a meteor strike destroyed their primary systems. Survival wasn't just in his blood, it was his inheritance. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The fusion core was a Valor design, elegant but rigid, built on the assumption that every component would be replaced before failure. They had never considered repair, only replacement. Marcus laughed bitterly as he examined the burnt-out plasma injectors. Of course they hadn't. The Valor had never known scarcity, never had to make do with less than perfect humans, though. Humans were experts at making miracles from scrap. He stripped parts from the mining drones, cannibalizing their micro-reactors. The Valor had designed them as disposable units, but Marcus saw potential in every circuit, every power cell. He bypassed the core's primary safety systems designed to shut down rather than risk imperfection, and jury-rigged a network of auxiliary generators. It wouldn't be elegant. It wouldn't meet Valor standards, but it would work. 72 hours after being abandoned, Marcus had breathable air again. The station groaned and shuddered as systems came back online one by one. He rerouted power through maintenance conduits the Valor had forgotten existed. He converted the cargo bay's magnetic clamps into makeshift heat exchangers. He even managed to restore gravity to 3 of the station's 5 rings, though he had to sacrifice the recreational deck to do it. But Marcus wasn't content with survival. That wasn't the human way. He had studied the Valor blueprints during his brief tenure, and he'd seen the inefficiencies everywhere. Their systems were over-engineered, bloated with redundancies that protected against every conceivable failure, but made actual operation sluggish. They had never optimized because they'd never needed to. Marcus began rebuilding. He rewired the sensor array, increasing its range by 40% using principles from old Earth radar technology. The Valor had relied on expensive quantum entanglement for communication. Marcus built a hybrid system using simple radio waves for local traffic, reserving the quantum channels for deep space transmission. Power consumption dropped by half. The mining drones were next. The Valor had programmed them for precision, each movement calculated and verified. Marcus stripped out the verification protocols and introduced adaptive learning algorithms, simple code his mother had taught him, designed for systems that couldn't afford to waste time on perfection. The drones began to anticipate, to improvise, to cooperate in ways their original designers had never imagined. Within 2 weeks, Station Helix 7 was producing more refined ore than it had in the previous 6 months under Valor management. Within a month, Marcus had automated enough systems to make the station profitable, even with a crew of 1. And then the Valor came back. Their salvage team arrived expecting to find a corpse and a dead station. Instead, they found Marcus in the command center, monitoring 36 drones as they extracted platinum group metals from an asteroid the Valor had previously deemed unprofitable to mine. The Valor overseer, a creature named Thex with silver carapace and compound eyes, stared at the readouts in what Marcus had learned to recognize as shock. "This is impossible," Thex whispered. The core was dead. Life support had failed. "You should not be alive." Marcus leaned back in his chair, taking a long sip of recycled coffee. "Yeah, well, you guys gave up too easy." "How?" Thex's translator struggled with the concept. The station was beyond repair. Our best engineers confirmed it. Your engineers only know how to replace parts, Marcus said. They never learned how to fix things. He pulled up a holographic display showing the station's new power distribution network. You see this? I rebuilt your fusion core using mining drone reactors and some wire I found in a maintenance closet. It's running at 83% of original capacity, but it's using 40% less fuel. I also improved your sensor range, doubled your mining efficiency, and I'm pretty sure I accidentally discovered a new heat dissipation method that your physicists are going to want to patent. Thex was silent for a long moment. Then slowly the Veiler began to gesture. A motion Marcus had learned meant profound respect. You are remarkable. We abandoned you to certain death and you have created something extraordinary. Marcus shrugged. Where I come from, you don't get to quit just because things look impossible. You figure it out or you die trying. He smiled, but there was steel in his voice. And humans? We're really good at not dying. The Veiler conglomerate offered Marcus a fortune to stay on as chief engineer. They offered him a fleet of stations to redesign. They offered him a seat on their governing council. Marcus accepted all of it on one condition. They would hire more humans. Engineers, technicians, problem solvers who had grown up knowing that survival meant innovation. That limitation bred creativity. That the best solutions often came from the most desperate circumstances. Station Helix 7 became the first of many. Human engineers spread across Veiler space, rebuilding, redesigning, revolutionizing. They took systems the Veiler had abandoned as hopeless and transformed them into marvels. They proved that humanity's greatest strength had never been resources or technology. It had always been the stubborn, magnificent refusal to accept the impossible. And Marcus Chen, the engineer who had been left to die, became the symbol of a simple truth the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Never, ever underestimate what a human can accomplish when you leave them alone with a problem and tell them it can't be solved. Because that's when humans do their best work.